161. So we're learning Kuntres U'Maayan, Baruch Hashem. We're making, I think, nice ground. We're almost at the 11th Maimer, which is wonderful. And the Rebbe Rashab, in his wonderful way of being very analytical, is really taking apart this idea of klippus and kedusha or pnimi or makif, and bringing a nice medrashim. Yesterday we learned that this powerful medrash that it really is worth memorizing in a way, at least orally, the teichen, the content of the difference between the pikeach, the smart fellow who wants to be just with the king, and the other deputies who are walking with him. They're interested in the fashions and fascinations. And the Rebbe, you should know, 1971, going into his 70th birthday, said a Maimer Bayom Ashtei Osir Yom. It's printed today in the Maimorim Melukit of the Rebbe, the series of the 6 volume series of his Maimorim. And the Rebbe brings this medrash and elaborates and explains it, and it's worth, if you get a chance to look at it and to see what it says. And I think it's also maybe partially in English. But the idea is, what's the Rashab saying? The Rashab is saying is, what would you rather have? And this is a daily meditation. What would we rather have? Would we rather have fascinations and riches and wealth? But you know that it's fraught with issues and problems, not today, tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next day, etc. Or would you rather have a measured, limited amount, but it's all good?
Right?
Exactly. Marbin nechasim, marbin daiga. When it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think a lot about this. I think a lot about this, because in a person's lifetime, and we're all, middle age or getting there or a little older, we've gone through different things and done different things, and this is something that I at least think about is, at this age I did this, and this age I did this, and this age, where am I today? Where am I going? And sometimes you get this urge, which comes from the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Habamis. Oh, he's doing this and she's doing this, and you compare yourself to a second person and a friend and a contemporary, and that comes from the klipa. That doesn't come from the kedusha. Now, you'll probably tell me, but it says in Hayoim Yoim that when it comes to holiness, to Kedusha, right, that famous Gevaldik Hayom Yom, what does it say? It says like this: just as in worldly matters, Hamaspik Bemuat, someone who says, enough, I don't need so much, is good. That same idea in Kedusha is terrible. You should always want more. Right? There is such a Hayoim Yoim, right? It's a very important one. So now you could say your friend is accomplishing, you and your friend grew up together. Hillel, I think, said that the other day that, or someone said that they grew up together with someone, and Dr. Weiss. If you haven't listened to this clip, I don't know if I sent it out yesterday. But this week there was a 2-hour almost interview with Dr. Weiss, Rabbi Hertz of Bnei Reuven, the rabbi there, interviewed him with some other people from England, and to me he said some new things that I never heard, and could be others heard it, but about the Rebbe, and to me what's fascinating, and what I'm looking for when I hear him, is for him to reveal a little bit what was going on in the room, in the house, his private conversations with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. That to me puts a whole, it tells you from the inside, because from the outside we have enough written and enough heard. If you really want to know, you have to know from the inside. And Dr. Weiss was in a position where he had these chats, and the Rebbe enjoyed speaking to him about science. What he said yesterday? He said the Rebbe had in some of his drawers in the office, he had science magazines. I forget one very popular science magazine the Rebbe had, and he read. Yes, Hillel.
Dr. Weiss was the doctor who was taking care of him after the stroke?
Not after the stroke. After his heart attack in 1977.
Okay.
And yesterday we celebrated 2 days ago Rosh Chodesh Kislev. That was for the heart attack, the 77.
Oh,
It was Dr. Tischholz from NYU or Sinai who was the lead doctor, and then they brought in Weiss and Weiss was there with the Rebbe for 2 weeks straight, jeopardizing and really almost and pretty much ruining his practice because the other doctors were very upset. And in fact, I heard something yesterday too, not from him, but when he went out because he had a call. So Rabbi Hertz said this, and I'm glad Dr. Weiss wasn't online. He said that he met another associate of his that was associate with his in Chicago in 77. And these were like new budding doctors, cardiologists, rising stars. And everyone knows that because he left the practice for 2 weeks, pretty much that dissolved his involvement. It was, and he says yesterday, he admits, he says he's a terrible businessman, money and billing, he says that's not his cup of tea. And in those days, it meant nothing to him. You started a family, he was, how much money did he need, and even today he says that's not his, he mamish had Mesiras Nefesh for the Rebbe because he lost his practice because of that. The other doctor said, my friend, we love you, but we can't operate this way. One of those doctors, Rabbi Hertz, met him a year or two ago, and he said to Rabbi Hertz, if I would have known who we're talking about, he never knew, about the Rebbe. I don't think he was religious, he was a Jew. If I had known who we're talking about here, I would have never put pressure and basically, told Dr. Weiss, find yourself another office and all that. He says, I didn't know. And only later, all these years that I find out and I read and I see, he says, and he read one of the books on the Rebbe, he says, wow, that's what Dr. Weiss was dealing with? And I let him go because of that? Like I'm such a fool. So anyway, it's these type of things, this came from Hertz, that is very telling, it's an insight, you don't hear it. But why am I saying this? Because, in this 2-hour interview program that they had this week, which is online, and you could see it, and I encourage you to do that, not all of it, part of it, I'm amazed about another thing that's relevant to us. Like Rabbi Hertz and others are asking him, like, you're a chassid? Are you a chassid? A Lubavitcher chassid? He says, yes. So they say to him, what grabbed you? I mean, of course the Rebbe grabbed you, but you to say I'm a chassid, like, Dr. Velvel Green, the NASA scientist who I knew and personally. So he told me on several occasions, I am not a Lubavitcher chassid. I am a chassid of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Okay? Now that's and frankly, if you knew Velvel, Dr. Green, that was true. He kept his ring on his finger, I don't know if till the end, till his last day, but he didn't wear kapota, I think he put on a gartel, whatever, he wasn't conventional Chabad, okay? So they asked Dr. Weiss why he feels he's a chassid. And you know what he said? Listen to this, Yoni. Listen to this. This really, it's impressive and it's true and it's a lesson for me and for us. He said, I love the singing and dancing. And that's what I relate to. And they also spoke about saying L'chaim, how Rabbi Kudin and him would make kiddush on a glass of vodka, on Shemini Atzeres, or Simchas Torah. You see another part of this genius cardiologist from Harvard, and he's such a warm individual, and he loves the Warmkeit of Chabad Hasidus. He loves the dancing. He loves the singing. Did you guys ever see the way he would stand at a Farbrengen and clap and dance and sing? It was like a little child in a toy store, jumping up and down, so excited about toys. And it was amazing to watch him. Here's a man, he has no beard, and we know he's the Rebbe's doctor, but okay. And he's like, and yesterday, in listening to him, that was his answer, why he feels he's a Lubavitcher chassid is because he gets into the emotions that are expressed through Chabad. In other words, I'm sure he's learned Hasidus. I'm sure he's learned a Maimah, right? Maimorim. But it doesn't seem to me that that's really grabbing him. Grabbing him. There are others amongst ourselves, right? There's some that what grabs us, the intellect, the depth, the Rashab's analytics. Wow. You know what I'm saying? What he said yesterday is the Varnkeit, and for me, it was refreshing to hear because we live in such a time where everything is so mechanical. Everything is so mechanical. Like I grew up with people, and at a time where it was all about the heart. Reb Shlomo Karlbach, that whole movement. It's not just the Shlomo. It was a whole movement of soul and heart versus cup versus mind. And believe me, you had plenty of smart people at the time, graduates of Columbia and Harvard and Yale and Oxford, and the list goes on. But that's not what grabbed them. Like I told you, once a year there was a Pagisha in Lubavitch. It was the week of December 25th. Right? So the Shluchim sent their brightest to Crown Heights, and they brought the brightest speakers, Emanuel Shachat, Zalman Posner, Manish Friedman, Dr. Block, and a few others. And I attended some of these. And Yonis, I'm sure, attended them as well. And it was knockout. It was gewaldig, But the students then in the 70s, late 70s, and early 80s, they were not talking about cars and girls and money. They were talking about God, proving God's existence, and the validity of Torah, and why do we need to put on tefillin? I mean, these were the questions. I mean, or if there was anybody there that was into Yoshkin Nebuch, with Manuel Shachat, he can stand up Shachat in front of everyone and say, hey, I am God. And they would look at him as like a crazy guy. What do you mean you're God? So it says, my name is Emmanuel, Imanu Kael. God is with me. I'm God. Prove me wrong. And that's how he started a conversation to get into that Yoshki guy that was caught by the JC people and all that, and he intellectually destroyed him. He made mincemeat out of him, quoting verses. I remember the man he knew the New Testament on his fingers. And he would say, you're learning wrong, you don't know the real Hebrew, and he would show him, right? So Dr. Block, it was the Midnight Farbrengen. This was the Midnight Farbrengen, Matzah Shabbos. It started midnight, and who was there? Rabbi Avram Lipsker, the Mashpia at the time of Morristown Tiferes, Jonason's Mashpia, and Dr. Block. And they were buddies from Yeshiva back in the 50s, and they knew each other, and they sat together and Farbrenged. And it went usually all night, and they could say a good l'chaim. Both of them, they were able to say a good l'chaim, and they did. And the chevra took l'chaim, and in the morning, 5, 6, 7 in the morning, you had about 4, 5, 6 guys, whatever, 10 guys, I don't remember, that got on a bus and went to Morristown to the Baal Tshuva Yeshiva. What did it? Now Block was, you understand, he was a philosopher, a PhD in philosophy. The Rebbe told him to write a book on Plato. Okay? You're talking about someone who had a deep head. But he wasn't philosophizing at the Farbrengen. He was saying l'chaim and warming up their hearts. So when Weiss talks about this idea, and we're learning these Maimorim, we have to know that we need to come to a point to invest our hearts into what the Rashab is saying, not just our minds. Okay, enough with the drushes. Back to the text. We did a Farbrengen. Now let's learn. Yes, have to learn. Yes.
You mentioned Dr. Velvel Green, right?
Yes.
Is that the guy in all the videos, in the gem videos? You see this one guy that he stands out in all the videos that he's really into it. He's dancing and his hands are moving and he's shaking and he's like wearing like a. He doesn't look like a Chabad chassid. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know what you're talking about, but it's not Velvel Green. Velvel Green was not often at the Farbrengen. He lived in Rochester, in Minnesota. What?
Yoni's talking about Abe Sachs, the coach.
Yeah.
Abe Sachs. Yeah. I'll tell you about him at not if I bring it. I knew Abe Sachs, and I have a lot to say about Abe. Abe was a Baal Shemska Jew. If you wanted to see the Baal Shem Tov, you looked and paid attention to Abe Sachs. This was, but it's going to take time. Another time I'll tell you about Abe. Abe Sachs was a tzaddik. No, really, a tzaddik lister. This was something out of the ordinary that we we were zeicha to have in our midst. Okay, Chaver, let's go to page. Yes.
Yeah, I think we're towards the bottom of 159, by the way.
Right, 169.
No, 159.
No, we're not, Moshe. We are holding one. Hold on, Moshe. No, we're holding 163 towards the bottom. We learned yesterday the mashal of the Medrash or the Pikach. Where is that mashal? Let me hold on.
It's on 150. That's on 159.
But we learned more. Wait a minute.
I don't think we did the Kitzer.
You're right. Moshe's right. Sorry. 159 the bottom. Kitzer. I'm so happy you have such a student. Thank you. I'm serious. That shows that you're paying attention and you're learning. It makes a teacher the happiest. Let's go. Kitzer, 159. Hachoyshev, the sinner, the transgressor, who thinks, the kashiyelech b'shirishli, but will go in his merry old ways, good ways, shalom yeh, peace. So, bedugmas hasitra acher, he says, hey, the negative side, the negative energy, they do what they want and they got peace. Shemekabelas ma'makiv, they get from the encompassing energy, shrefa merupa, they get a lot. Next page, 161. Toyahu, says the Rebbe Rashab, you, Jew, who makes that cheshbon, you're making a mistake. Why? You're comparing apples and oranges. You come for pnimius. For you, it ain't going to work. For them, it works because they're klippa. So your comparison is erroneous. From the perspective of God's essence choosing us. And from the perspective of us choosing Hashem, who mitzad apnimius, it's a pnimius relationship. So from both perspectives, Yoni, the idea that we're comparing ourselves to the clippers getting so much and having a good time, and I'll follow the same way, it won't work. It won't work. Okay? Let's continue now. When I talk about the essence and the inner dimension of Hashem, primarily who has a place there, who has a recognition there, and whose domain is there, it's Jews who do Torah mitzvahs. That's what establishes the criteria of Pnimius. Now it's a rhetorical remark. What we learned earlier, everyone can receive from the makiv, they can also receive. So what are you telling me that it's only associated with Torah mitzvahs? So the retort to the rhetorical question is, so he's introducing here another point, Avi, which is there is chitzonis hamakiv, the externality of the makiv, and there is what we're going to say in a moment, Avu b'chinas pnimius hamakiv. There's the inner dimension of the makiv. Shama kavona sheyikim Torah mitzvahs dafke. There, the intent is there should be Torah mitzvahs. What is he saying here? He's saying that within the makiv experience, there's the external and the internal. So the external part lends itself to a free-for-all, and Goyim can get and can marry and will get and all that. But the real essence of the Makiv is also dedicated to Torah mitzvahs, i.e. to Yidden. Let's continue. Ukadisa Medrash Rabbah, as it says in Medrash, the world was void and chaos, or chaos and void. This refers to the deeds of the wicked. And then Hashem says, let there be light. Says the Medrash, this refers to the acts of the tzaddikim, the righteous one. The Medrash says, Hashem says, I don't know which one does he want? He wants this or that. So then later when the Torah says, and Hashem saw that he saw the light, and he said, it is good, That proves, that answers the quandary, that he wants the righteous and doesn't want the activity of the wicked. It's known. Now the Medrash uses a language here, Hillel, called chafetz. We have in Hebrew two words, chafetz and ratzon, both really meaning will, desire. The Chassidus Chabad says there's a difference. Ratzon denotes the external will, and chafetz denotes the internal will, the pnimius. Let's look at the next paragraph. It's known, the chafetz upnimius harotzin, that chafetz refers to the inner will. Or when we talk about the inner will, which is also the inner makiv, there he wants only the actions of the righteous, daftir. And from there it's drawn forth the level of pnimius, in ishtalshelus. So in this world, or in all worlds, in the progression of worlds called ishtalshelus, when there's a pnimius revelation, it all goes back to the pnimius of makiv and to the chafetz, the level of ratzon Hashem, pnimius haratzon, which is chafetz. When it comes into this world, it feels as though it's lower than the encompassing energy, but really, it's infused with pnimius. You understand? A yid, through Torah and mitzvahs, is infused with pnimius, even if he's not exciting as lahavdil agoy. I remember when we were in front of the three judges after the San Francisco 1989 earthquake, and the court moved to a plush high-riser, and I went in there and it was like royal. You usually think of a courtroom a certain style, And here we are and there were sitting three judges on a dais. And there was our lawyer, Sandy Rosen, defending our Chabad house. The issue was, religion versus residence. That whole question at the time was a big question, and usually siding for the residents, for tranquility and all that. Here we had a shul, a Chabad house, whatever. And so our lawyer was a good Brooklyn boy. He was born on Crown Heights, on Crown Street, where they have now the Lubavitch Yeshiva, and the buildings over there, that used to be a hospital. And he was born in that hospital. He moved to San Francisco. He studied in Yale together in the same class as Alan Dershowitz. But he wasn't religious. I don't know if his parents were religious, but his parents always told him, and I think I told you, he was the lead lawyer in the 1974 the Kent State, Ohio case with the shooting. You remember that? So he was the lead lawyer. Sanford Rosen, you can look him up. And we had a lawyer for the initial stage, the state court, and very fine fellow, another Yid, a good friend of mine. And when we had to go to the higher level, it was going to take a lot more time and a lot more money and a lot more, just a different level. So we needed to, my congregants and board felt we needed a higher quality, top-notch lawyer, because the lawyer that we had wasn't specializing in that field. So we hired Sanford Rosen, and it was amazing working with them. Calm, cool, collective, a real yidale, And we went before the judge, and their lawyer was this Italian, tall, handsome, didn't look schleppy and nerdy, cool, his hair gelled back, gray. I mean, this was like, it was mafioso versus schlepper, okay? And I'm getting nervous that this guy, just by standing in front of the three judges, he's going to impress them, and they're going to side with him. Well, Sandy Rosen presented an amazing argument. They argued that the county of Marin County government, by granting Chabad a use permit, which they did, was entanglement. It's called religious entanglement, which is against the Constitution. And Sandy Rosen came up with an excellent argument, and he presented it. I think it's the first time in history that I know of, not that I'm a big bucky, I'm not a lawyer, but he came up with the argument. It's not entanglement, it's religious accommodation. And he argued that the United States Constitution allows for accommodating religion. You're not allowed to entangle in religion, but you're allowed to accommodate, and that was the wish of the founding fathers. Great argument, and they liked this argument, and then they started, their lawyer just went, he went along with the lies. Chabad has 150 cars Friday night, and Shabbos day, and Saturday day, and lies and lies. I mean, we couldn't get a minyan. Many times we had 10 people, 12 people. It's like, come on. And the lawyers there, the judges were so smart, and they started to shoot and throw questions. They made a fool out of him in public. I'm telling you, it was embarrassing. And they turned it over 3-0. They reversed the decision because we lost. Oh, we lost in lower level court. We lost. The Marin County Supreme Court ruled a 12-page opinion against the county for granting us a permit. And I was all nervous, and I spoke to Rabbi Kunin, and anyway, and these 3 judges from the higher level who, really know the law better, they just reversed it completely. Why am I telling you that? Because here we're learning about the Pnimis and the Chitzonis, and the Rebbe says a word, that Rashab says a word, that even in Makif, there's Pnimis and Chitzonis. And he says that the Pnimis of the Makif is reserved for who? For Yidden. And so I elaborated on that in thinking that here it is, this our lawyer looks like a nebuch. Our lawyer is more quiet and docile. Their lawyer is all pompous and spiffed up and all that. And he got the mapola, he fell, and we stood proud and we won. So the lesson is that if you are from the Pnimius HaMakif, and you're living that way by Torah mitzvahs, it's going to work out. And it's going to work out in a good way. And you have nothing to worry about. So that's what I was thinking when I was learning this. Let's continue inside. What? I don't want to...
In order to prove your point to the court, they should have brought that guy that was the 10th guy that you found that was underneath the hood of somebody's car.
Yeah, those type of moments cannot be reproduced. He would not come. This was a 95-degree weather. He never saw me. He saw this alien walking down the street. He didn't see it. Well, he out of his car. I looked like an alien to him, and everything else. So you can't repeat that again, because once you repeat it again, it's already too normal. A normal experience, it wouldn't work. This was a heavenly experience and a one-time experience. And you go on, you take it and you run with it, And then years later you reflect on it and you work with it and you use it. But it's highly doubtful. Listen, when I went around that, there was 538 homes in the area we lived. It was a kind of a planned community. And I decided I need to make a petition and get people to sign signatures and present it. This is before the decision. I can't, and I spent hours, my wife can tell us, I spent hours in the evening walking the streets, paving, knocking on the doors. And you can't imagine how many doors didn't open for me and how many doors were closed on my face and how few people were willing to sign. Everyone knew what's going on. And I'm including Nebuch, many Yidden that lived there. I mean, I remember it's another Farbrengen to tell you about the people who were so far from Yiddishkeit, and to get them to understand that because they knew some of them were neighbors with some of our congregants, and I said you know how nice these people are, and our life is on the line. Just sign, please. No. Anyway, it's another discussion. Let's go further. Okay? We're in the last paragraph on 161. So, although outwardly Moshe, the level looks lower, right? The guy looks better than the Yid, right? The mafioso is stronger than the nerd. The source of the Yidale is much higher. The essence of the Yidale, who's broken and shattered and a small and not dressed well, he really takes himself from the Pchinas HaMakiv, and therefore in him is the Kavana, and he ultimately is going to succeed. Next page, 163. Well, the fees then move on, top of the page. Based on this, we understand that the Nishmas Yisrael Shemekab Ma'idei Torah Mitzvahs Mipchinas Pnim B'Seder Ishtalshelu is that Yidden who receive through their neshama the pnimius of the Oyer Pnimim Sheidish Hamshochu Mipchinas Pnimis V'Atzmos L'Mayla Bein Arich B'Nis Makavelion, that really this pnimius it connects to what we call Atzmos, the essence. The essence of God is touched through the Jew. What is the advantage of this? Here, the energy, you understand, the energy of Pnimius creates Achdus, unity. The nature of Pnimius is to be one. The nature of Chitzonis is you're there and I'm here and I'm giving you. No, so it means I'm outside of you. Hillel, the nature of Pnimius, by default, by its definition is, I'm with you. That's what he says. Look at his words. And he's meyuchad with him. Dehine asitra ache kishamagbiim esatzmon lekabel b'chinas hamakevelyon harei oire ni mesachet imoim chas v'sholem share ein kodesh b'sarav b'choyel. The sitra ache its energy does not unite. It's not ba'achdus with the goyim. Share ein kodesh b'sarav b'choyel. We have another rule. It's a halachic rule, and the Rebbe Rashab brings it here to understand the spiritual aspect. You can't mix holiness and mundanity. They don't go together. This is a mistake we make. We're going to do two things together. We're going to be holy and we're going to be mundane. And we have the best of both worlds. It doesn't work that way. The early Rishonim philosophers, Avi already said, Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba don't go along. Either you want Olam Haba or you want Olam Hazeh. Make up your mind. But just I have to say it. I don't want to say who. You might figure it out. I remember when I was in the first year of the Kailu, and I met someone in the street, and he said to me, I said, why are you living here? Why aren't you in Teaneck? Why aren't you in Flatbush? Why aren't you in the Five Towns? You speak English, your kids speak English, you have your English, come on. You know what he said to me? If I can have the best of both worlds, why not have it? And God bless anyone that can do that. But the truth is that you don't have the best of both worlds, because when you give up, and you've given up everything, and you made aliyah, and there, believe me, you made a sacrifice, okay, and a big sacrifice, and kudos to you, So this is what we're learning here. Ein kodesh misarav b'choyel. I'm sorry, kedusha and choyel and mundanity, mundane, don't go together. And it's another mindset that we need to think about. Do I want to be holy or do I want to be secular? What do I want to be? I just read an article from a doctor who became a Baal Tshuva, a Harvard graduate, Crown Heights Baal Tshuva. His son, for some reason, looks like he's angry at his father and probably many others. And he writes an article, was published online, how the fact that he learned in a Lubavitch yeshiva that doesn't teach English, so he was an ignoramus, and only later did he learn, it's his father's fault and the yeshiva's fault, on and on. In other words, I went to Lubavitch Yeshiva, and we had English and high school, and I graduated, took the regents and all that. But the other yeshiva, Ali Torah, is officially no English, although many hired tutors for their children. But in a way, this idea of keeping Kedusha separate than Chayil. Why? Normally it's because the fear that the Chayil, the mundane, will make a negative impact on the Kedusha. But the truth is, and just like Dr. Weiss said about the Rebbe, that he had science magazines in his drawer, the truth is, it's not just for the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's for everyone. If you have the right perspective, you know that everything is Kodesh, and Kodesh means understanding science for the betterment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They asked the Rebbe, different people at different times asked the Rebbe why he attended some way university, which to the Haredi world at that time and today was an outrage. And the Rebbe, various times either didn't answer or he did answer. And one of the times that he answered, I think he wrote this in a letter, I saw it once, he said, it was to prove God from the scientific perspective as well. It didn't shake his emunah because his emunah was strong from Torah and Kedusha. But you want that science should also substantiate it. So this is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is when you mix the two and you end up making a balagan and this is this and that's this and you don't know right and left, and because of that you end up making mistakes. Let's just continue and finish the paragraph. And he says, when we talk about an encompassing energy, the energy is separate from them, from the goyim completely. And they have no association with the energy whatsoever. Conversely, when you talk about Jewish neshamas, number one, the oil it ignites, illuminates in a pneumius, in inner way. And number two, it unites itself with the Yidden, as we said earlier. So based on this, we understand the Sheidish Hamshochu L'mayla Harbe Primus Hamakiv, that the source of the energy that comes to Yidden is much greater than the Makif. He goes back to the verse in Dvarim that he quoted earlier. Hashem does not forgive. Why does Hashem forgive a Yidden who mess up, and Goyim seem to be forgiven? Says the Rebbe, he anisenis. That's the words that we use in Hebrew and Gemara. On the contrary, the davke akum sheim b'chinas acharayim v'chitzonis levad. Goyim, non-Jews who get from the chitzonis, the external only, nothing more. So they can get from over there. Avali Yisrael, but Yidin, which come from Pneumius, and overall speaking, generally speaking, they don't get from the backside, from the Acharayim. They normally get from Pneumius. And when it comes to Pneumius, you got to be prepared. You have to do it right. You have to make a keli. So here again, the Rashab is leaving us with a very important lesson, and it's it's a good it's sometimes a bitter pill, but it's an important pill. We're Pneumius, and Hashem demands more of Pneumius. So the comparison to those that are prospering and benefiting and all that, they're Chitzonius. So why look at Chitzonius? And now let's just for a second take that back to our own lives, because that's something we think about. The grass is not greener on the other side. It's not. You think it is. We think it is many times, but it's not. And where you are, yes, you understand. Just one second. Where you are and what you're doing is exactly where you have to be. Yes, you understand. You understand? Yeah.
Yeah, I heard something that it's greener on the other side because there's more manure.
Look, L'chaim. Good word. So, Avi, what's your thoughts on what we've been learning about this difference between Pnimius and Chitzonius and the Yidden versus the Goyim? Rabbi Avi.
I hear you.
We want to hear from a scholar.
Do we say that one of the Tzadikei Umot HaOlam, that he can't have that? That's a pretty harsh kind of thing.
That's a different. We're not talking about we're not talking about the Hasidic Umas Olam. They. That's not what the Rashab's talking. We're talking about the most other non-Jews who are not Hasidic Umas Olam.
Right.
The Hasid.
And what about a Jew who's not a practicing Jew or considers this as part of the? I mean, the Jews, so he has the Ora Pnimi.
He has the Ora Pnimi in his essence, but right now he's in a deep galus and a deep sleep, and he's acting like a non-Jew, and he's benefiting from all the shtus, and it's painful. He's going to need a deep cleaning. A deep cleaning. His teeth will need a deep cleaning. A deep rinse, a very warm rinse. He won't get away. But at the end of the day, he's a Yid. When those thoughts come to us, Avi, and I don't mean this in a critical way, chas v'sholom. When those thoughts come to us, and they do. The other day, my friend sent me a video. There was a photographer, Freiden. His name was Freiden. He lived in Eretz Yisrael. He was a Russian Jew, and he'd come to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe liked him. He liked the Rebbe, and he took a lot of pictures, and the Rebbe let him take pictures and videos. And he goes up to the Rebbe, and he says in this Russian Yiddish, was hier gerecht nechten, what you spoke about yesterday, the Farbrengen, about the Yevasetzia, about the KGB, with the Jewish division, which did so much service for Jews in Russia. He says, the Shomer Atzoyer is the Zelbazach. In Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, the Kibbutzim Shomer Atzoyer, right? The anti-religion, they're the same thing. And the Rebbe was collecting, the envelopes for tzedakah people, and picks up his head. You can see it. He says in Yiddish, "Same shein lang tshuva getan." They already did a long time tshuva. They did tshuva from a long time ago. Why are you saying negative against them? And I was saying to my friend, this is not lip service. The Rebbe wasn't saying, and he continued saying another few things to him, and you see it was serious. So you'll say the Rebbe is a tzaddik. It's not just about being a tzaddik. The Rebbe is sharing the true Torah perspective. And the true Torah perspective is that a Yid inherently is shayach the pnimius. Now go dig hard and reveal it. That's it. And more practically, let's think about ourselves. Where were we one day? Whether you were born from, you weren't born from, that's not the point. Everyone knows their weaknesses. And we want Hashem, slach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. No. So why not ask Hashem to slach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu from a Jew who's gone so far? So, sometimes you need to use that thought to humble yourself, to humble ourselves. But anyway, Seid gesund, Chevra. Have a great Shabbos and Kislev. We'll see everyone Sunday, Mit Hashem. L'chaim u'levracha. Take care. Nice learning. Bye-bye.